Mr. President, thanks so much for your time. Your memories of President Mugabe, and how will you be remembering what was his legacy?
Well, firstly, he was a revolutionary, and since we were fighting for liberation, we were comrades in arms. I remember him when I was elected to lead the SWAPO Directorate of Elections. We came to Zimbabwe and were assigned Mnangagwa as our commander to prepare us for elections in Namibia. And that briefing from him and his colleagues helped us when we came to Namibia. Besides that, I have also been interacting with him at different fora. He is a very steadfast, very ardent revolutionary who was concerned about the land issue, although the land issue was used as a card when things were a little bit not going very well. But he played a very effective card. But he even warned us, situations differ. It may not be the same thing in Namibia, but we did it for Zimbabwe. So patriotism that he had and Pan-Africanism, we cannot lose. When Namibia's elections were a little bit going wrong, he wrote a very, very strong letter to Secretary General. And that way he appointed deputy, the African from Botswana, to be deputy to Artisari. And that helped our situation. So yes, we know him as a revolutionary, as a statesman. We know him that he stayed too long. I believe in term limits. If you look at President Mandela, I look at these people as extraordinary personalities, the founding fathers, that are first wave African leaders who told us to wake up and fight for our freedom. But then second wave leaders came during the Cold War, engulfed in Cold War, one by the state military coup. Now third wave leaders are asked to think of processes, systems and institutions. You must know you are there to serve and to quit. So I already know when I'm leaving. So when you overstay, of course, as a human being, some mistakes are made. It's human to err. But when you overstay, sometimes you destroy your legacy.
Certainly, certainly. And in terms of those mistakes, the mistakes of the former president of Zimbabwe, the economic mistakes were grave. My colleague has been speaking about the hyperinflation of 500 billion%, I believe it was. We have got an economy that was once the breadbasket of Africa, now essentially struggling to come back. What could the president have done better? You've alluded to the fact that perhaps it was the fact that he held on to power for so long, but as current leaders look back on his traits and what he did do, what can they learn from in terms of his mistakes?
Well, I wouldn't always just emphasize mistakes. The point is he was still struggling economic liberation war in his country, and therefore he took steps that were not welcomed by some people in the West. The sanctions were applied, very deadly sanctions. So you have to operate under those kind of conditions. So we can judge him, he made mistakes, but also reality on the ground was different. But still, I believe if they had a proper succession plan, not that he made a mistake in taking, schools were very good, schools were good, it's true the breadbasket, but what happened is that ideological differences with the West.
Sure. And you go ahead, Mr. President. Godfrey, the President of Namibia, has said that he has got a bit of a cold there and therefore sipping on something for his throat. But Mr. President, I mean, as we look at it right now, the education system is one thing that is respected, but the former president having what has been described as abolished the healthcare system. I mean, if you just take a look at where he passed and where he received medical treatment, it wasn't within his own country.
But it's a sad story of all of us in Africa, that sometimes he didn't go to Singapore because he didn't have proper care. I learned that he was suspicious of the circumstances. And if you can be afraid of your own system, there is something wrong. So it's true, but it's a sad story. We must learn from that as Africans leaders, we must develop our own countries. We must have conducive environment, both for investors and also for our citizens, so that they don't run away from their countries. That talks about good governance, inclusivity, because inclusivity spells harmony. If you exclude any tribe, any region, you will have discord. So even in governance, if you are strict, completely sometimes ignoring opposition, ignoring everybody who is not with your party, there are these conflicts that will continue. So I think as third wave leaders, we deal with processes, systems and institutions, not based on a personality. Personality cult is what is a problem. But we created that because it's our founding fathers, we revered them. Look at President Mandela, he was revered like a god. Had he stayed on, maybe he could have made mistakes.
What will you draw from the leadership of President Mugabe as a lesson to take into your leadership to ensure that your rule or your governorship over Namibia is effective?
Firstly, I have great respect for him. As I said, I knew him from our struggle days, how he helped us. So that you cannot question. As a Pan-Africanist, you cannot question his credentials. He was in Ghana, married a Ghanaian lady. So he's a Pan-Africanist at heart. And real Pan-Africanists get angry when things are not going their way. He sees what the Western countries are doing, but some people don't see, but he sees that. He gets angry. But now the world is very different. We have to be careful. We have to look at our power base. Am I strong enough to take them up? Am I not clever? I must be. If I'm not strong, I must be clever, kind of a thing. So Namibia being a very small country, we believe in saying that Namibia is a child of international solidarity, midwife by United Nations, friend to all. With that, I want to embrace all people. I want to know they must come on our terms. That's a problem. We want the investors to come. South Africans, for instance, now, I have good news. Business people who get now 5-year multi-entry visa. Before they had problems. We are also trying to open up to say the time that it takes to do business was too long. But look into the bureaucratic bottlenecks must be cut out. Then we are saying we must invite people who have money to come and retire in Namibia. It's a peaceful country. So many of the UN people are coming to retire in Namibia. So we are opening up.
It must have come as a relief to you to have seen our latest growth figures, where we have come out of a contraction in the third quarter, given Namibia's dependence on South Africa's economy. One of the things that have been said is Namibia's drive towards reducing that dependence. How far are you in diversifying from South Africa?
You see, there's a contradiction. When we had Kwame Nkrumah and Nyerere fighting for AU, Kwame Nkrumah was saying immediate African government. Nyerere said now we must first have regional REX that we can harmonize our activities, governance, architecture, and so on. So aim is one day to unite. So it's a contradiction to say you have to be completely independent of South Africa, and Namibia is too small. And it's a question of how we get synergies. President Cyril and I are talking about that. Some people are saying we must be linked from RAND. We say no, it serves us well. So you have to be clever, not just to say because we want to be independent, cut off. That's why problems come. So we are very careful in Namibia. South Africa under ANC is a country which is our closest neighbor. We have a lot of things in common. It's just for us to see how we can be allowed to also industrialize in some areas, and that's agreed upon. And we can come with areas in which we can say, allow us to industrialize, because we have to add value to our raw materials. We cannot just export them and value is added there, jobs created there. We have to buy our own material at a higher price. But to me, with South Africa, current leadership, even in the past too, we have a very good synergies. President Cyril and I are talking, even calling each other. So whatever is outstanding, we'll resolve it.
I mean, talking about, uniting the continent further, of course, I imagine in your conversations with the other heads of state here at the World Economic Forum, the Africa Free Trade Continental Area deal did come up in conversations. And I want to unpack that a little bit with you, starting with the idea of a single currency. What is your view on that?
The problem is, as I said, we take decisions of a proper, analysis and so on. We took in SADC, we are going to have common currency in 2010. It came and passed. So I welcome all these moves. We tried tripartite agreement with the SADC, COMESA, and East Africa. We are now moving according to Nyerere for regional consolidation and then the move. We have the African Continental Trade Area. It will be good for South Africa, it's a big power, to expand to Africa. But we must implement what we are taking decisions on. We like to take impressive decisions to impress people. But we didn't think them through, and therefore implementation becomes a problem.
We must walk our talk.
Exactly.
But in terms of the opportunities of that Namibia offers investors, surely not just retirement, as you did say. The mining is a big element of your economy. You're rich in copper, in uranium, amongst other minerals. You did speak about the fact that beneficiation needs to happen a lot more on the continent so that we, earn the rewards of the minerals that are under our ground. How are you having those conversations with investors by way of saying, yes, we are open for investments, but you need to look more towards localizing some of the operations in that mining space?
The lighter point I made is because there was a problem between South Africa and Namibia about visas, because business people are given single entry, and really how do you are so close to Namibia, we have good shuttling service, you can leave from here 8 and come back in the evening. Following day you can come, so you need multiple entries. It is a problem for them. That's why I mentioned that. But yes, when you say we are open to do business with the world, you have to have conducive environment, investor-friendly environment, private sector-led one. Now I had a big conference about 1 month ago, the private sector, they led it. They invited everybody, and they gave proposals to us, what we must do to be attractive. We are implementing that. Like ease of doing business. People are having difficulty, one stop must be enough. So it makes doing business easier. You are welcome in the country, you sit there, everything is done for you by that office. Besides that, we have minerals. Minerals are things we don't eat. We don't eat uranium. So therefore we invite people to come and exploit them, but they must know, of course, besides paying royalties, they must know that they must also feedback. Something has to be done in the country. And business people these days are not like in the past. They do listen. They want to cooperate. So create a win-win situation. A win-win situation means don't come on your terms. Investors come in Africa on their terms. The pre-conditions already said, I'm going to do this and this, give me this and this. We are saying, come on our terms. Tell us, I want to come and invest. And therefore, to me, I also say, don't come to President for business plan, as in the past. Processes, systems, institutions. Start with land ministry. So there is a multi-layer decision making to also cut out corruption aspect. Because it's now multi-layer, not one man ordering others to give this. So we're trying to be a transparent government. But transparency plus accountability equals trust. Trust in African leaders trading. So I'm saying, if you are transparent, transparency in true sense of the word, and be accountable to our electorate, trust will develop. And we, the third wave leaders, are doing that, all of us.
Mr. President, I'm also interested in whether conversations with investors about how to improve the business climate, whether the issue of perhaps incentives or even more favorable corporate tax rates did arise. Namibia sitting with a corporate tax of around 34%. Has there been any requests to lower it down to increase investments in your country?
Yes, that's a problem. Our revenue comes from taxes. Now, if you are told to lower that, it's a problem for you. But what we say, tax breaks they want, because they invest massively. So they want to recoup their investment by getting conditions that are a little favorable. These are things we can discuss, but it must be fair to both sides.
The dependence on the minerals, what we have seen from South Africa's case recently from our trade statistics is we have seen our exports of precious minerals being affected by what is happening globally with the trade war, but also China's economy slowing. Has that same impact happened in Namibia yet?
My sister, what happens here will immediately, when you, what do you call the head cold we are getting, whatever it is, whatever happens here affects us. But that's why we are working together. We have a good relationship where we can call each other and say, brother, I have this problem. Let's approach this business person together. So Botswana, same thing, with diamonds, we're trying to cooperate. So we have a unified position that we present to one stance, South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana, and Angola, to move on that way. We are raw materials based economy. We are industrialized enough, we are diversified. But we need that to add value to our own resources, also to create jobs. We know if you just import, you don't create jobs. Even if your GDP grows up, which we are doing, it doesn't create jobs. And that's spelling danger.
And what is your plan for job creation, particularly jobs for the youth, as many African countries struggle with too many young people who don't have work?
You know, South Africa is maybe different, but Namibia, people there had to get a boss. When you are trained, you are equipped, you are being equipped with ammunition, but you still get a PhD and look for a job. So you are still a job seeker, and a job creator. That element must also come to our people's minds. They just want to get jobs from a boss because they are used to the colonial situation. So West Africa, while you have lower unemployment is anybody who's sitting there selling something for himself is counted as employed. So I had to argue about Burkina Faso. I went there. I looked at the place, I said, how can they be better than us? They told me, in your case, everybody has to be employed by a boss. Whereas here, people have their own little things. Now, our people have to start that too, to create their own job. We are now emphasizing vocational training because PhDs do not build countries. It's the people of their artisans. So we have decided as a way to go to have a massive vocational training. Even Japan already pledged 40 million grant because it's attractive to them too. And we are preparing pace and power that will now take over one day. Fourth industrial revolution is coming, robotics. We, the former freedom fighters, talk about labor movements, sweating. That's over. They do smart work now. And therefore, we retool. The robots don't strike and ask for overtime and so on. We will be left out if we don't adjust to now retrain, reskill, and therefore move into the fourth industrial revolution.
Well, you actually took my next question out of my mouth. It was regarding the fourth industrial revolution, which is a theme here at WEFA. And Mr. President, what contribution is Namibia hoping to make in this space? Quite often it's said that the first, second and third industrial revolution missed many African countries that were bystanders. How are you planning to position Namibia to ensure that it's not left behind by this fourth industrial revolution?
We are close to you, so we are doing it together. You are more advanced, but definitely when you talk about training people, retooling people, you have to join other countries. You cannot do it in isolation. Namibia is a small country. We need to open up to South Africa more. We need to talk to Kenya. These countries are together with us. And together we cannot allow to be left out anymore. We have to retrain our people. They have to get skills that can be employed. We have been doing wrong studies, histories, political science. It doesn't create, you don't get employed with that thing. You must train now, schools must change the curriculum, that people must be trained in subjects that will immediately go to the job market. Before, we're not doing that.
And just finally, I mean, given our proximity as South Africa and Namibia, one common factor that we do have on right now is the issue of trying to address land reform. And Namibia, like South Africa, has received or experienced difficulties with that regard. I see the latest proposal on the table is pursuing land expropriation with fair compensation. Perhaps you can just give us a bit of color as to exactly what that means, because, I mean, any investments coming into your country, for sure, property rights and the security thereof will be of prime importance.
We are processes and systems, institutions are legal institutions. We are a country by law. Any country to move, you must have law. You must be predictable, so that business people can know when they go there, law is there that they can go to and get justice. We had a very serious case now of Irindi farm. It's a game farm for South Africans only. They want to sell it to 1.9 billion rand. And people are saying, don't sell land to foreigners. Now we went to try to talk to them to buy it, to keep it at home. They didn't accept our offer. People were trying to say, nationalize it, take it. I said, I took oath to protect rights of people. So in our country, land is regarded as property, not land. They were clever in putting that in the constitution. So therefore, when we talk to them, our dilemma, look at it, they agreed to give 100 million at least, could have gone to corruption. So they said that government can take to buy few land, because that land is unsuitable for the settlement. So land issue must be tackled very carefully. Young people, of course, think having a farm will make them rich. It's not true. I have a farm. It's not easy to farm in Namibia.
Are you rich?
No, the farm doesn't make you rich. That's why you have to be transparent, so people can know. I declared all my assets. Go and see.
Mr. President, it's indeed.
But I have been working. I'm a president. I'm well taken care of. You don't have to grab, but it's not yours.